Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you for rejoining us for our second day of Cherry Bekaert's 2025 Government and Public Sector Virtual Conference. We have well over 1,000 registrants again today from over 38 states, and we are very happy that you're with us. The first day was awesome. Really special appreciation again to Emily Brock from GFOA and to the North Carolina State Auditor for guest presenting with us. Today's a little bit different. Today's going to be more of an accounting and finance day. We're going to have a GASB update. We're going to have talk about financial close and challenges, talk about some ERP implementation challenges, and then I'll touch on what we're going to be talking about in our first session here in a minute. For those of you all who do not know me, my name is Danny Martinez, a partner here at Cherry Bekaert, and I lead our National Government Public Sector Accounting Advisory practice. A couple quick notes. I know we had it in the video, but we get them asked often. So just to let you all know, Q&A on the bottom. If you have any questions for your presenters, you put them there. Yes, you will get the slides to this presentation. They will be sent out usually a week after the presentations. Polling questions. You want to make sure that you answer at least 3 during these sessions. They will pop up. They'll be up there for about 45 seconds. Just want to touch on those because I know we get those questions often. So in our first session today, you're going to get to learn about modernizing financial systems and processes. And what we're going to look at is how you can do that in a practical manner in a way that will get results. I know that modernizing government efficiency, doing more with less, doing more with what you have has been a topic that's come up often in 2025. And so I'm very pleased to present our speakers for today. With me, we have Michael Piotrowski and Brandy Westbrook. They are both senior managers within our CFO advisory practice, really subject matter experts in this area. I'm going to turn it over to Brandy. And again, thank you all for attending today.
Thank you, Danny. Good morning, everyone. I am Brandy Westbrook and happy to be here. I'll give just a little bit of background here. Excuse me. My screen stopped sharing. I have spent time in both the private sector and a firm, as well as the public sector. I spent 15 years in state government, and yeah, happy to be here and to join you all today. Mike, did you want to give a little background on yourself there?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. And it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you in the kickoff session of our conference this morning. By way of background, I've been doing finance transformation work for public sector and commercial clients for about the last 22 years. My specialty, if you will, is in finance strategy and operations transformation, which allows me to help our clients think through alternatives for improving processes, implementing technology, putting in stronger governance frameworks, if you will, and most importantly, making the reporting as transparent as possible. So with that, let's continue on, Brandy.
All right. We have a polling question here. Mike, I think happy to be here presenting with you. The polling question we have here, we're interested to know who we're talking to today. So if you would answer what public sector area you represent, if you just select the bubble there, and then we would like to know a little bit more about who we're talking to. My background specifically working in government with state government, but I've also worked with a lot of local government and federal government, as well as nonprofit and higher education. But my time in state government was specifically at a state agency. And I know, Mike, you've worked on quite a few government public sector clients. Let's see, a lot of local government. Okay.
That's good.
That's good. Then that's really who our team serves mostly, is local government. So happy to know who we're speaking to. Let's see, a little bit of state government and just a bit of federal government. All right. We will jump right in. Mike, would you like to go over the objectives and start the first session?
Absolutely. Let's do that. The objectives are pretty straightforward. We want to understand what's driving modernization in government. That's a very, very relevant and important topic. We'll also learn how to apply a structured framework to help drive modernization efforts. So we want to demonstrate a systematic and rational approach toward modernizing as efficiently and effectively as possible. We'll look at some compliance and risk considerations that relate to modernization. More importantly, we'll even think about the art of the possible. What can we potentially do, and how can we challenge activities and processes and systems that are clearly outdated? Also, what can we do with the resources and the time that we've got available? And lastly, let's learn about how implementing technology solutions, which have always been challenging to both government and commercial clients, can be less intimidating and less disruptive to ongoing programs and services. So the big question here is, what is finance modernization? It's a very broad term, and more importantly, how do we approach it? And let's go to the second polling question before we get into this. And we're asking, what is the biggest challenge in your organization right now? Is it around talent and workforce capacity? Is it around inefficient or outdated processes? Limited technology? Data quality and accessibility issues? Or budget and regulatory constraints? It looks like we've got a pretty close race between talent and workforce capacity and budget and regulatory constraints, with processes coming in a strong third. So that's great. That kind of sets the context for much of what we're going to be talking about over the next several minutes. So let's start with some definitional terms, because I'm sure that everyone who's viewing this webinar has bumped into these terms at one point or another. And we're talking about optimization, modernization, and transformation. And what I'd want to point out is that there are some key distinctions between these terms. So when we optimize a finance function, we're talking about simply doing things better than we are today. It's all about focusing on, I would say, incrementally improving existing processes, systems, and resources to help with gaining efficiency, effectiveness, better quality, lower cost within the same framework. So essentially, we're taking a look at what we have right now, and we're coming up with better ways to do things that aren't quite as impactful as these other options, which include modernization and transformation. So when we modernize, not only are we making a process or a system better, but we're likely replacing an outdated system or technology, or putting in a new end-to-end process to bring people up to date, if you will, with best practices, with what we're seeing at leading practice government, non-for-profit, and commercial entities. And this all serves to help enable scalability, if you will, to the extent that transactional volumes increase. The new systems and processes will be able to handle that volume. It'll improve agility. We'll be able to get stuff done quicker. And most of all, it'll provide a better user experience. These days, college graduates are coming out of school using the latest and greatest technology platforms. And to the extent that organizations continually think about updating their existing technology stacks to incorporate some of these latest and greatest applications, it really makes the work go much more efficiently and effectively. And quite frankly, people are just more excited about having the opportunity to use new technology. Lastly, transformation. This is about totally rethinking about how we conduct operations, how we perform processes, how we do work. And it's basically looking at how to do things completely differently, completely more visionary, if you will, to really elevate the role of finance in government, as opposed to being an entity that simply reports on what's being done. Finance can help drive innovation. It can help drive policy. It can help drive better decisions, and most importantly, help create long-term value. Let's continue on. So at Cherry Bekaert, we work with our clients, and we do this by following a very holistic, thorough, comprehensive framework to transform, to optimize, to modernize finance and other business functions. And it's a holistic approach because if you pull one of these levers, in other words, if you upskill your workforce without providing, let's say, current, relevant, up-to-date technologies, there's a possibility that you're going to be underutilizing these talented people that you brought into the workforce. Likewise, if your focus is on technology or you're bringing in the latest and greatest cloud applications, automation, integration, etc., and you have a workforce that's incapable of being able to use these new capabilities, that's not going to work either. So, by a holistic approach, just to summarize, we look at transformation through the lenses of people, process, technology, and data. And the ultimate goal in taking a look at how all four of these attributes interrelate is to ultimately enable transparency, compliance, and efficiency in government.
Oh.
This kind of puts it all together, and what we're showing here is what I would say is a quasi-operating model showing how people, process, technology, and data interrelate. As I said earlier, if you pull one of these levers, you have to realize that there are going to be impacts on the other three levers. Implementing technology is probably going to require some process redesign. It's probably going to require upskilling the workforce. It's probably going to require that existing data is reviewed, cleansed, reshaped in a fashion such that it's leverageable on the new technology platforms. So again, it's a holistic approach, and it's all about taking a look at these four dimensions, looking at how they interrelate, and coming up with solutions that satisfy all of these needs. Leading with people is an approach that many of our competitors really haven't looked at that closely. It seems as if there is a tendency in the industry, if you will, to solve every problem with technology. You'll have advisors come in and say that, oh, you really need a new system to solve this problem, or you really need a new process enabled by this new system to solve the problem. But we take a look at people first. We take a look at organizational capabilities. We take a look at how the organization is designed, roles, responsibilities, spans of control, layers, et cetera, et cetera. And we then start taking a look at how can we best design processes and systems that most closely fit the needs of the people that use them. With that people-centric approach, the risk of a project not meeting its objectives goes down significantly, primarily because the solutions are aligned with the priorities and goals of the organization as a whole and of the individuals who comprise the organization. We want to make sure that everyone's bought in, everyone's excited, everyone is enthused, energetic, supportive of an improvement program, whether it's optimization, transformation, or somewhere in between. So the organizational change management component becomes very, very relevant and very, very important toward moving the organization to a higher level. Building the team's ability to use the new systems, that's all about training. That's about making sure that people understand what the capabilities of the new system, of the new process are, and how to best use those. I can't tell you how many times over the course of my consulting career that I've dealt with clients saying that we've made a multi-million-dollar investment in technology, yet we're only using 30 to 40% of its functionality. That's something that we want to throw by the wayside and make sure that the individuals in your organization are able to use the new systems the way they were intended to be used. Lastly, we provide support to the extent that your needs evolve as a result of regulation, as a result of compliance, as a result of emerging risks. We'll circle back with you and make sure that you've got the proper support to actually triage and address these specific needs as they emerge. Let's go to the next slide. Being cognizant of strategy is very important too, because I've seen a lot of organizations engage in improvement efforts irrespective of strategy. So they get a project that might serve the needs of a certain organizational element, but when I look at the entire organization, it's possible that that investment could have been used for a higher purpose, if you will. The investment wasn't necessarily aligned with a shared vision and strategy for the organization. So the improvement, although results were obtained, you have to ask the question, did our investment in people or process and technology really help move the ball forward as it relates to moving forward with our shared vision and strategy? Feedback loops, continuous improvement. As you're modernizing, it pays to make sure that you are realizing the benefits that were originally envisioned. There's obviously a cost to improving a process or implementing a technology, a one-time cost and recurring cost. So it's very, very beneficial to track the results that you are receiving from that improvement, whether it's cost savings, whether it's freeing up people to do higher value work, et cetera, et cetera. Being compliance is job one, because we need to make sure that anything that we improve is in compliance with any regulatory requirements. And lastly, communicating the modernization initiative transparently to the organization is a key success factor. You want to make sure that individuals aren't simply in a vacuum and they're hearing things through the grapevine in terms of how these projects are progressing. So newsletters work, providing regular updates to staff works really well. Sharing success stories is incredibly exciting to people within an organization, and lessons learned as well. So the value, the method, in summary, covers all of these dimensions quite nicely. And our focus areas are obviously on process improvement, making sure that our clients have leading practice-based AP, AR, financial reporting processes, introducing automation, whether it's updating a technology stack or introducing such capabilities as robotic process automation or AI to help incrementally improve processes. Data analytics, when you think of all the data that an organization collects, there are so many ways through business intelligence tools to create custom reporting, different views that various people within the organization require in a timely, accurate fashion. We want to look at reducing cost. Doing things as inexpensively as possible is totally consistent with the mission of any organization. And lastly, the training and upskilling, making sure that teams really understand what has been changed and how to act upon those changes as efficiently and effectively as possible. So 5 phases. This is how we approach every one of our modernization projects with our clients. We do a discovery phase where we pretty much get a lay of the land. We want to understand current operations. We want to take a look at current capabilities, particularly around the dimensions of people, process, and technology. We want to make sure that the future state that we define, whether it's a process improvement or a technology implementation, aligns with the vision and strategy of the organization. Design and planning, that's pretty straightforward, because we'll come up with a plan that accounts for all of the work that needs to be done. We'll sequence it appropriately. We'll define a critical path, and we will lay out the work so that it impacts the ongoing activities of the organization as minimally as possible. We know that people have day jobs, and when you're throwing a modernization effort on top of that, you have to be very, very considerate of the ability of the organization to keep the lights on and help drive that project forward. Change management, as I touched on earlier, very, very important. We want to make sure that individuals are comfortable with the change, excited about the change, ready to act upon the results or to create the results that we expect from the change. And lastly, continuous improvement. It's all about making periodic checks of the work that's been done, making sure that things are tracking properly, and to the extent that they're not, making those little tweaks to fine tune the process, to fine tune the technology, et cetera, to get the best results, to get the best return on the investment.
All
And
right.
at this point, Brandy, I'll turn it over to you. So why does all this stuff I talked about matter for the public sector?
Thank you, Mike, for really defining how we envision the different types of modernization efforts, whether it be just optimizing, doing what we like to call modernization, which includes quite a few different things, all the way up to a complete transformation, with utilizing completely new technology and things like that. So what I want to talk about today is why this matters for the public sector specifically. What I have found, both in my time in government and my time in the private sector, is that organizations often don't feel like they know how to start solving the challenges. Limited resources, we all understand that, skill gaps, strict regulatory requirements for in general, and then specifically for procurement, like contractual service procurement. I know the state I worked in had very strict procurement regulations, and it made it difficult, not just from a budgetary, but from a regulatory standpoint, to get the help that we needed. And so, bridging that gap there to get it started, or to get help and even figuring out how to solve the problems. And as you can see, this specific insight came from someone at a city government, which most of you here are in the local government. So I'm sure that you may identify with this a bit. So how many of you we did a little poll earlier and talked about some of your biggest challenges and gave a few, and I think we all said all of the above, but here's expands a little bit on some of the challenges we face. So we talked about leaders not knowing how to start, but how many of you have, feel like you waste time and energy on manual processes, or you have issues with the data quality, lots of spreadsheets? I know that there's a lot of spreadsheets that we use manual, whether it be between systems or I see all these thumbs up. Yes, we feel the pain. We love a spreadsheet now, but we feel the pain of having a lot of manual entry. And then can we always trust the data if we're transferring it, manipulating in a lot of ways? Regulatory issues, always a big thing in government. There's a lot of oversight, whether it be federal law, state law, other compliance and regulatory oversight that really govern what we do. Operational disruptions. We know about all of the phishing attempts and all of the potential issues that can come up with maintaining data integrity and keeping often we in government deal with, PII, and we want to make sure that we are keeping all of that information secure. Poor systems configuration and integration challenges. One of the things we talked about with some of the transformation overall, we all know we've all had an ERP implementation that has gone awry, that has caused us some headaches and problems. So, or they're just not configured, or their controls don't exist in the system. So we have to build a lot of outside controls. And then, of course, integrating between, sometimes we run multiple systems, and that's where you get back into, Excel and other manual ways to integrate some of that information. Redundant or ineffective process steps. I have found that sometimes we can have several different departments kind of operating in silos doing the same thing, or sometimes there's some overlap there, or there's some gaps that some things are falling through the cracks. So with the silo processes or the departments, we often end up with redundancy or ineffective process steps there. Complex compliance and procurement rules. In addition to just the concerns with staying in compliance, the complexity of the procurement rules often create barriers, or sometimes timing, sometimes budgetary, sometimes, other restrictions, but often just the complexity of them makes it difficult with a limited staff to really manage what the options are, or kind of wrap our heads around what solutions could be. Of course, we've talked about limited budget, staff capacity, and skill sets. I know firsthand how hard it is in government to get new positions, to train people, upskill people, individuals, to kind of change some of the roles and what people do because of some of the limitations there at times. And then, of course, we have the resistance to change. As Mike mentioned, the change management is a big part of it, and training gaps there. So making sure that you really support the staff with the training that is needed to be able to operate in any modernized system. And then, of course, in government specifically, there's a need for additional transparency and public accountability. More and more, we see that the public is really wanting a lot of information. They want to understand what is happening, whether it be with services or with their, tax money, or with the government in their city, town, state. And so, needing to be able to provide that transparency and be accountable to the public without complete disruptions or having to change the system that you operate under. So why modernize? To me, this is a no-brainer. I'm like, if we can do it, let's do it. But one thing I like to say is that modernization is not just about tech. It's about resilience. You want to build that infrastructure. We are not looking for just a tech forward approach, thinking that, oh, well, we all hear all the amazing things that some of the tools can do, AI and all, some of the systems can do, but it's more than just technology. We need to build the entire structure, the training, the skill sets of the employees, just the infrastructure there to be able to adjust as times change. We all know that there's new programs or new needs or requirements that come along. So we want to make sure that we are resilient and we can adapt to change. Of course, we talked about the increased demand for transparency, obviously big reason to modernize. Aging systems and manual processes that hinder efficiency. My goodness, my time in government, I had to learn systems that were, I think, put in place maybe before I was even born. And so that was always interesting to try to use spreadsheets or manual processes, or learn older systems, or teach new staff coming in how to operate under these systems that don't necessarily have like a lot of help features, and it just kind of hinders the being able to be efficient or effective in what we do. Public expectations for digital services are rising. We've seen this, that people really want to have the opportunity to do things online or electronically and not go visit a physical office at times, or do so many things manually. So that's a big thing that is an expectation a lot of times for constituents. Of course, we can talk about it, and we will keep talking about compliance requirements from federal and state regulations. We just know how cumbersome those things can be, if even for appropriately, still can be difficult to walk around in that environment. So we want to also optimize limited budgets and resources, whether it be in staffing resources, budgetary resources, tools and technology resources. Just optimize what we have to work with and try to make the best potentials, whether it be making decisions or just optimize what we have in-house to work with. Another thing that obviously very important, improve audit readiness and reporting accuracy. People want to be able to trust the information that we put out. So we talk about that data integrity, and we talked about the reports that we produce being accurate. Also, having being able to lead our decisions and our strategy. And then, obviously we want to be ready for our audit. I have a button that I had in state government that says, I heart a good audit. raise your hand if anybody has the same button. A lot of us, audit nerds out here. So we like to be ready for that audit when they come, know what to expect and have things in order, always make things easier. Modernize legacy systems and reduce manual work. We talked about this a lot, but modernizing, yes, systems, but also thinking kind of outside the box about solutions and processes that can be put into place that aren't just an entire RFP process to get an ERP in, and could take years and a lot of lift there. So we think that, and I would agree with this, that state and local governments have largely been left behind as practices evolve with technology. Large-scale transformations can be really disruptive. I don't know if you've been through this process, but with limited staff and all of these, I see, some emojis there, and I'm feeling your pain. That we have limited resources, whether it be budget or staff, time. The process can be really cumbersome and difficult, and transforming everything at once. Sometimes you have services that you can't stop providing, or you have requirements that you have to meet and deadlines. So trying to make something, transform everything at once can be sometimes just too disruptive. So what we like to do is really take a holistic approach is needed for mission-driven organization. So I would suggest that is where your mindset needs to be in modernizing, is how can we take everything into consideration? How does everything work together to meet our mission? So we have a few benefits here. We've talked about the pain points, so let's talk about some of the benefits. Obviously, meeting some of those increased demands for transparency and accountability. Constituents demand more and more. They want to know that people are being held accountable to the funds, and that there's transparency in the processes and in contracting and data integrity and things like that. Ensure compliance with. We always want to be in compliant with whether it be federal, state, or local regulations, as well as internal compliance issues that have been determined with your specific agency or organization. Optimize our budgets with limited resources. Of course, we talked about improving audit readiness and accuracy, modernizing legacy systems, and achieve efficiency without the unnecessary risk or disruptions that may come with some of those very large-scale transformation efforts. I love this one because I call it a Doge defense, is how I've been talking about it. It's a catalyst for modernization. We've all heard some of the disruptive things in the federal government that have happened, and a lot of states are going towards having an efficiency office as well. We all want to be efficient, absolutely. So my idea, or our idea, is why don't we be more productive? Let's take a forward-looking strategic approach, shift from being more reactive, and when they come in and say you have to be more efficient, or we have to cut this or that, let's see how we can defend against that by being proactive and taking a lot of the steps on our own. So let's build a robust modernization strategy. I know someone in the comments earlier mentioned some lean project management strategies. All of that involves, there's a lot of tools and techniques out there to build a strategy for a leaner, a more agile and citizen-centric structure. That's one of the big differences, is that we're focused on services and citizens. And so we really want to be able to do that in a strategic way. We can conduct a funding vulnerability audit to identify high-risk programs, whether it be high risk in funding, grants, availability, or just the data integrity coming out of the performance indicators in those programs. And then the potential of losing some of that funding, and how would that program continue. We like to explore alternative and diverse funding models, just to think about how we can do what we're required to do with less resources and be a little bit more creative there. And we want to accelerate digital modernization and automate administrative processes to reduce overhead. So that's when Mike talked about some of your AI agents or tools or other technology that can help just modernize some of the routine things and automate some of the routine things to allow us to spend a little bit more time on thinking about how to improve or do things differently or recruit and retain talent, those kind of things to reduce just some of that administrative expense and time. I like to say that the DOE's defense is to protect your operations and your service programs with a proactive approach to change. So that strategy and change management also includes dealing with, how everyone, including the public and internal to the organization, as well as the governance organizations, how they view the change and what effect it can have and what improvements can be made, both operationally and in our service programs. We like to suggest that it's a really good idea to build cross-sector coalitions. I think a lot of you probably are really good at doing this, being involved with some other organizations in your communities or networking where you can share some insights there. Social impact bonds is one. Public benefit corporations are another that are really great for mission-aligned services for organizations that provide a lot of the same services or either have the same mission and heart. Consider shared services models across agencies and jurisdictions. I think this also happens. Sometimes local governments can take advantage of some of the shared service models that are on the statewide level or even regionally. And then institutionalize continuous improvement to create and maintain continuity and resilience. We talked about resiliency being, one of the main goals. So if you put that continuous improvement process in place, and you continue with the change management and the communication, then I feel like, and in our experience, will be much more prepared to be more efficient in a more proactive way. All right, so some lessons from the private sector. We know that the private sector, for a lot of reasons we've discussed, leads in automation, analytics, and agility due to, of course, some of the compliance issues and some of the restraints in budgets and just some of the other structure of public sector entities. We don't often have some of the resources that the private sector have or some of the flexibility there. So government can adapt the best practices while maintaining compliance. So take some of the things in the private sector that work and make those work in the public sector, in government, and also considering the compliance and regulatory concerns. Some key differences, and those of you that have been in those sectors, or you probably just know this anyway, risk tolerance, our procurement cycles. I think the private sector's minds are kind of blown sometimes that things are done on a budget year or a fiscal year, or we have to deal with legislative session or appropriations, other funding, maybe grant funding coming in. The public scrutiny that need for transparency and accountability, customer strategy and mission. A lot of public sector entities, growth and profit are, obviously, some provide services or goods, but growth and profit tend to be high on the priority list. And really for, government entities, we're more concerned with who our customer is, what our strategy is, and how are we going to fulfill our mission and vision. And then, of course, the regulatory and compliance constraints that exist in government. All right, we have, so establishing a foundation we like to think of it as operations and finance being a department, but we know that finance flows into a lot of other areas. So we really need to establish a solid finance foundation while we optimize operations as it relates to all other business processes as well. So if we're trying to move people, data, processes, and all that away from paper or manual on spreadsheets into a modern tech stack with some automation, we focus there on standardizing those key processes, confirming accuracy of data, training and upskilling teams, implementing or optimizing business technology, either small or large, just depending on the needs there. And then compliance review, right? Making sure that we're, like we said, audit ready, that we are in compliance with state, local, and federal requirements. So as far as operations, has your organization been asked to do a lot more than you were probably set up to do to begin with? Have you surpassed the foundational skill set or tools that the capacity within your finance department? So we like to focus on optimization and automation, defining and implementing data governance and analytics capabilities, creating talent and organizational development, like assessments, review solutions if we need to move things around to make them work better, and then implementing, optimizing, or integrating technology needed. Compliance-driven modernization. We like to say that our modernization efforts in the government sector is compliance-driven because that's really what governs everything that we do. So regulatory frameworks, other, accounting standards, local, state, whatever requirements, those are the foundational things that govern what we do, and they're foundational to the public trust. And then as finance teams modernize systems and processes, we want to make sure that you have your internal controls, audit trails, reporting capabilities, all of that is preserved, because that is what is going to, ultimately be required or asked of you. So anything that you do to modernize or automate any of your processes, making sure that those compliance things are still taken care of. So embedding that compliance into those new workflows and technologies, rather than treating it as an afterthought. So kind of design with the end goal in mind. So that's where we really talk about being strategic in the approach there. Aligning modernization efforts with the compliance requirements to reduce risk and improve resilience and audit readiness. All right, so we think that any modernization efforts that you choose should be tailored, specifically the value for the public sector. So we've talked about compliance readiness solutions, including cybersecurity and privacy frameworks, modular services to fit the procurement needs. We all know about procurement thresholds, and we know about contractual requirements. So making sure that the solutions can be something that you can actually obtain and implement in a reasonable amount of time and budget. We like to take a tech agnostic approach, and we encourage that anyone that is either helping you do this, or if you're doing this internally, think about what you need done, but don't start with a solution, a technology solution in mind. Think about what needs to be done, and then find find a certified partner that will help you with that. Experience in the ERP lifestyle and public sector constraints. You want to make sure anyone that's helping you has experience in that, the entire life cycle, and then the compliance and regulatory, budgetary constraints of the public sector. Make sure that they're a trusted advisor for modernization roadmaps, having really insight into the way government works on all levels is so important for someone to assist with these initiatives. And then, of course, focus on transparency and accountability. You're going to be asked for the information. They're going to want to know the answer. So having that focus there, and then design it to avoid disruption in the services, which is the overall mission. So your accounting professionals, project managers, subject matter experts, make sure they have public sector backgrounds, regulatory frameworks and other governmental accounting standards, not just check boxes, they're foundational. Finance teams modernize. They, make sure that we have everything intact, like we talked about earlier, our audit trails, and that we preserve them or we enhance them, because we know that the requirements are only going to increase. Embedding the compliance in the workflows, technologies, as that roadmap is built, considering that the whole way through, that holistic approach, and then, to reduce the risk and be more resilient. So we have a case study here, and you all are lucky, since most of you are in local government, that you may identify with this. We have the background on this client here is a local city. We won't name them, but they're experiencing significant issues and inconsistency with reporting, relying on outdated manual. These are all things that we said are some of our main, pain points in government. The ability to track and respond to like federal grant funding requirements and responses, tracking expenditures, reporting was just there was a lot of option there since it was so much was manual. It was error prone, manual error, or just data issues, and so failed to meet federal audit requirements. So we performed reporting. We go in and analyze and report on the current state and how to optimize that, reviewing the existing workflows and processes integral to the reporting, and created and standardized required reporting criteria, of course, considering the compliance and the transparency. Used internally and third-party GSA-approved technology platform for variance analysis and reporting. So some of the results after that whole process, the analyze and implement, significant reduction in reporting errors and time saving due to standardizing the reporting templates, configured systems to automatically allocate grant funding based on predefined rules, and develop dashboards for grant tracking and Power BI and Tableau. And in doing this, also making it flexible enough that you can make additional changes if different requirements come along. We have another case study here. Mike, would you like to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. I'll spend about 45 seconds talking about a 10-minute case study, but this is something that Cherry Bekaert does frequently, and although I'm biased, I'll say we do this really, really well. We'll come into an agency, a commercial client, et cetera, that has disparate systems, tracks things manually via Excel spreadsheets that are very, very susceptible to audit risk. And as I touched upon earlier, we'll come in and do the holistic assessment of people, process, technology, and data. We'll look at all these attributes. Our experts in the firm specific to information technology can come in and quickly identify areas in which ERP systems and finance applications are underutilized. And by identifying those gaps, we can propose a course of action that allows our client to utilize these ERP systems as effectively and as optimally, if you will, as possible. Outcomes are pretty obvious. Better reporting, less manual effort, fewer audit findings, if any, plus a foundation for future modernization. So again, this is a very representative project from Cherry Bekaert's portfolio. And again, we do this well. We hear about disparate systems, and there's a lot that we can do to get data synced up and all this to talk to each other. So let's finish up with our polling question here. What would be the primary goal of modernizing your organization's finance function? Is it transparency and accountability, regulatory compliance, strategic planning and decision-making, operational efficiency, or resilience and adaptability?
Again, I think, Mike, this is one that I could probably say all of the above.
Yeah, I'll bet we get a pretty balanced set of results here. That's my guess. Operational efficiency is in first place. So most of the above, Brandy.
All right, most of all of the above. Okay, let's see what we've got now. So a few key takeaways here we can go over, and we will provide these slides after. Collaborative journey, we've talked about. It's not just a one-time project. Continuous improvement, got to make sure we have stakeholder buy-in, build a robust strategy, citizen-centric structure, forward-looking approach, that DOES defense we talked about, adopt, shifting from reactive to proactive. And then again, we use the people, process, technology, and data framework as our guide. We have some key differentiators here. State and local government specialists. We specialize in, local government, some state agencies. We are used to, we're small enough to deliver these projects and have that expertise, but small enough to care and big enough to handle it. We don't just advise, we help you execute, and then seamless strategy and execution. All right, we're about wrapped up here. I think we're going to open up the floor for questions. I would like to say we have more information available on our website for some services that we offer, quite a few. Mike and I happen to be in the finance modernization realm for government and public sector entities, but we have a lot of other things that we offer and can help with. If you'd like to check that out. So we have a final polling question. Would you like for one of us to reach out after today's webinar? You can let us know your answer. And
it'd be our pleasure to do that. We've presented a lot of information in a very short time frame, and it's like drinking from a fire hose in some respects. But please don't hesitate to reach out to Danny, myself, or Brandy if you have any further questions, or if you want us to dig a little bit deeper into your specific challenges.
Did we get the poll?
Yep, that's good. That's good to go. You can move to the next slide.
Okay. That is it. Just questions now. If you have any questions, we appreciate your time today and for you joining us, and are here to help in any way that we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandy, and thank you, Mike. So we did get some questions in the chat. In the interest of time, we will get back to you individually to respond to those questions. Again, this is a topic that has come up time and time again. I really like Brandy's point about the DOGE defense. If they're going to be asking anyway, might as well be the ones to build the framework to modernize where you want to modernize. Greatly appreciate you all. Greatly appreciate the time. We will be back in 6 minutes. There's me another link that you should join for the GASB update. That'll be myself and Scott Anderson presenting on the GASB update, everything from 101 to 104, implementation guide, projects, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much for your time this morning.